Welcome back, Warriors, to Stroke Warrior Radio. This is part two of our belief series with Keith Taylor from Strength After Stroke. Today, we're diving into chapter three, releasing limited beliefs, and four, renewing your value from within. Before we move forward, welcome, first of all, welcome, Keith.
Hey, welcome. Well, thank you, Ralph. Appreciate you, buddy. I know how hard you're working, and I just appreciate you so much. So,
Thank you very much.
yeah,
Before we move forward today, Keith, let's briefly anchor ourselves in where we began. In chapter one of belief, we talked about the differences between stroke itself and the limits we place on ourselves
hmm
afterward. The stroke happened, that part is real. But many of the barriers we feel today come from the stories we tell ourselves, especially those quiet, I can't thoughts that
hmm
slowly become accepted as truth. Chapter one reminded us that while we can't change what happened, we can adjust our beliefs. And that belief is often the first place real change begins. And that brings us into today's focus, I think, unless you want to add anything to that. But because once we start questioning those limits, the next step is understanding where those beliefs come from in the first place. So let's start
yeah.
here. How do you define limiting beliefs in stroke recovery, and how do they take root in someone's mind after everything they've been through?
Well, so first of all, I think we all have some limiting beliefs. I do, not just stroke warriors, but after having a stroke, your confidence level is broken. No joke. I mean, you and I both know that. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, you come out of the hospital, you start, you're having to lean on other people all the time, to help you in whatever regard it could be. It could be physical, it could be mental, it can be whatever. And so your confidence starts coming down after your stroke. So, and I believe that confidence is one of those things that, I was even thinking about this yesterday. You and I, and I met with three stroke survivors yesterday. The confidence factor is critical. And when we start not believing in ourselves, it takes a whole lot of work to get back. And so the limiting beliefs that I'm talking about are just those things that we tell ourselves all the time internally. And so what you have to do is it's almost like you have to take a course or something to regain that, Ralph. I mean, it's like you have to on purpose start taking control of that self-talk. And that's where in the B.A.S.E program, it's like telling a new story. You've got to come up with some new stories, and you've got to release those limiting beliefs, and then you've got to take action on that. And that is where the rubber meets the road. If you're not willing to take action, look at your goals, make sure you're putting in the good all the time, it's going to be a tough road.
Yeah, the internal things are really that definitely kicked my butt.
Yeah.
But, besides the internal, why do outside opinions like doctors, family, and society have so much power over how we as survivors see ourselves?
We have given them that power. That's where it came from. You talk to most people about their doctors or neurologists or all these people who, yes, they had to go get a huge education. And I am not downing any of those people. I want to
Oh,
make sure,
agreed. Yeah.
yeah, I want to make sure I'm very clear. However, they have a job to do. And you and I, if we go to the neurologist and he tells us, okay, do this, okay, and then we leave, he's got 50 more, clients that day, right? He is not going to, most of them are not going to be calling Ralph up later that afternoon and saying, hey, are you working on this? What are you doing? So I love the medical field that we have, and I'm so proud of all that. But we have to take that control back. We have to be the ones who decide that we are going to make the we're going to control the things that we're inputting, and we're going to work on it ourselves. And if we're not willing to do that, we're going to get ran over, frankly.
One of the things that um, I was, I guess, good at for personally before
Mm.
was perfectionism. How
Mm.
does perfectionism turn into a limiting belief after stroke?
Well, so you call it perfectionism, and how does that turn into a limiting belief is because you can't, in your own mind, you have gone through a stroke and you have come down, okay, and you're telling yourself the story that I'm not good enough anymore. And you've got to reverse that back, and you've got to regain that, bud. Um, am I making sense on that?
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I say before my stroke I was a perfectionist. I kind of OCD. My house has got to be this way, but that kind of thing. And I lost that after
Yeah.
the stroke. So I mean that created a limiting belief in my mind that I can't do this again.
Well, so what I would do with you, if I were coaching you, let's say, I would say, what is important to you today? Let's change the format of that. Just because you were a perfectionist before doesn't mean that that's what's most important to you today. And you went through a stroke, and and so did I. And so the game changed, right? And
Yes.
so we have to be willing, Ralph, to relook at our situation. It's like I've talked to so many people recently about purpose, which we'll probably get to that. And your purpose has changed. Is it easy to find? No. Is it going to, drop in your lap? No. Are you going to have to work at it? Absolutely. But you can find a new purpose. And when you find that purpose, then you can let go of some of these things of the past that you were doing before, OCD or whatever, and you can get comfortable within yourself again and move forward.
Like it. Can you explain what is, I saw this in your program, nocebo effect and why it matters in stroke recovery?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. I might have to look that up again. Nocebo effect. I'm trying to remember what that was. I should know that. I apologize, bud. The
Oh, that's all right.
nocebo. Where did you
Well,
find that?
pardon me.
Where did you find that one?
I found that in chapter part three of belief. I can't remember what it was under
Okay.
what section.
I'm
Well,
embarrassed. I'm embarrassed if I'm being
oh,
honest.
get over
Uh,
it. We have stroke brain.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I guess it has something to do with how can warnings or labels become self-fulfilling prophecies?
How can warnings or labels become self? Say that one
Fulfilling
more time.
prophecies. How can warnings or labels become self-fulfilling for prophecies? For example,
Okay, so, oh, go ahead.
we're called disabled, you
Right.
know, those kind of things.
Exactly. Yeah, you're a stroke survivor, and yeah, now you're disabled, and especially if you're walking with a cane or you're physically showing it. Yeah, and how can that affect you? Is that what the question was?
Yes,
Yeah, so we allow others' judgment to really sway our way of thinking. And we have to release those, and we have to find a way to bring that value, okay, from here, from within ourselves. We got to grow our own value from within. And that is not easy, Ralph. I was talking to a stroke survivor yesterday, and I think I've told you this story about, when I was in the grocery store and the
Yeah.
lady, yeah, I wasn't talking right. I don't look the part really of having the stroke, but mine was all mental. And so I wasn't making sense and I got made fun of a couple of times. And Ralph, I finally chose myself to make that decision that I am not going to allow those others and those people to manage my personal life and my
Right.
growth. And so I started working on this and I started working on the things that are important to me, to help others and to help myself, frankly. And that's what you got to do. You got to get to that point.
Well, I think one of the best parts of your program is that you teach telling a new story. What's that really look like in practice?
Well, we just went through the first of the year. I don't know when this airs or anything, but so everybody looks at their goals, most people, and they start putting new goals down. And I'm not saying that's not right, but I also think that we got to do that continuously. And so you may have a new purpose for this year. And as let's say, when I had my stroke that first year, dude, I went through depression. I went through a lot of stuff because I didn't know what I was going to do now. Life happens. We're working, we're doing all these things, and then everything changes after your stroke. Sorry, I'm getting very animated. And
No, no
um,
problem.
and um, and there we are. And then we don't know what the hell to do. And so, you have to be willing to continually work on finding a new purpose. And, it changes all the time. I mean, what am I going to do tomorrow? Eventually, you will find that motivates you and is exciting for you again. And that's where you want to get to so that you can invest in yourself and you can really start growing.
Yeah. I, and I think one of the things about telling a new story is actually writing it down, like writing your beliefs down. And that kind of becomes important in changing the beliefs, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then that written format can change as well as you move forward. You will continue, but if you have it written and if you record it, I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. I've had this conversation many times, and I believe in recording it. If you can talk out loud or have somebody record it if you can't, get some goals, have that stuff so you can listen to it, you can write it, do whatever you got to do, continually meditate on that stuff. And that's how you're going to keep growing, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah. And for our listeners, one of the things you do is in the mornings, you usually will record something on your phone,
Mhm.
which is really amazing. I like that a lot.
Mhm.
I don't have to do on the phone because I do so many stroke water radio interviews. So
Well, and you know what? Does that not give you purpose? Does that not build your strength?
exactly.
Yeah,
And that brings us to the inspiration. Why is finding inspiring people so important for survivors?
okay. Let's talk about this for a second
Yeah,
because we all have friends, right? We all have had all these friends before our stroke, and then some of those friends disappear. And I just want to quickly say this as well. Some of those people are more afraid of you than you are of them. Okay. And so let it happen if that happens, but you have to be willing to find more people who are up a level. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, bud, but get into a group like we run our stroke survivor meetings, all these things. Find a place where you can find some people who will pull you up a little bit, will motivate you. It's not easy. It's not easy, but you can do it. And you've got to do that in order to grow yourself. Start learning some things that that somebody who you respect and admire is doing today. And like I said, it's not easy, to put yourself in that. But most of the time, you find that those people are very open to having a new relationship and helping other people.
It's kind of a admitting a vulnerability to a personal relationship.
It totally is. No, none of us like doing that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Why
Yeah.
does helping others release um, our own limiting beliefs?
Man, when you can help somebody else, we talked about purpose and that kind of stuff. When you're helping someone, um, whether you have a new purpose or don't, it it just makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel like I don't know how else to say it, bud. You're helping
Yeah,
someone else grow. How does that not make you feel great? And so if you can help some other people, it takes you to a great place and you feel good about
golden
yourself.
rule, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about, and you mentioned the purpose. Why is purpose so essential and for lasting change?
Well, I feel like, and I'm not looking at my book or nothing like that today, but I feel
No,
like purpose is your driving force. It is what motivates you to get out of it. Look, I had a bad day this week, and we all have bad days, and that is real, right?
yes.
If anybody says, "Oh, I have the best," I'm constantly driving towards my purpose and I'm doing this, that's a bunch of horse crap. Uh, we all have bad days, but if you can find uh, something that drives you, something that motivates you. I'm working on some purpose stuff right now, I'll be honest, because I want to help find that we can help people go in and do some study, do some thinking, do some internal stuff, maybe ask a few friends, and then learn what you want to start moving towards. And as you move toward whatever you come up with, you will find your purpose. You know, does that resonate?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you create value, I think, with your purpose. You create value for others, you create value for yourself. In my mind, anyway, for me, is I have a life that is important.
Mm-hmm.
So my purpose, with Stroke Warrior Radio, for example, it's I can't keep it unless I give it away,
Oh, that's
whatever.
that's great. And you just said also that I mean, it's like you wake up every day and you know that, hey, that's a great thing. You may not feel like doing it every day. There may be days when it's like, man, I can't do it. But you know that it's the foundation that you've got that motivates you every day to continue down that road. And getting that foundation, man, that's critical after having a stroke.
And part of that is kind of reconnecting with your own talents and skills. That becomes critical after stroke, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and everybody looks at their own talents and skills and they say, oh crap, I don't have any now because I had this stroke. And that goes back to right after the stroke and you're getting help from everybody and all this, and you feel like oh, I don't know the right term is, but you're not independent. You feel dependent, right? And so you have to learn to find independence again. And when you start getting that independence and knowing what looking for purpose and stuff, it will come. It will come. You have to be patient sometimes, but it's going to find you and you're going to find it.
I often tell people that after my stroke, I learned patience. We don't have a lot of choice, do we?
That's right. I'll show you patience here. Have a stroke. You know, yeah.
But
Uh,
that's one of the things I think most of us didn't recognize early on is that there is a patience that's required of us.
Oh man. Oh man. Good one. Good one. It makes me think about this doctor that I was coaching, and you want to talk about impatience. He wanted to tomorrow be back. And
Yep.
it was like, man, you've got to just keep taking a small step forward every day, and it will come. And you know what? It did come, Ralph. I I was thinking about him a couple of days ago, and it really did come. And now he's out riding his bike. He's doing all these things again, and it's because he was consistent and persistent with himself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Another thing that um, is interesting in your program is values. How does that help anchor survivors?
You got to find your values. I'm going to look at the book here for a second because, and without looking at that, if you can write down some real values that you have, honesty, you know, being integrative, some real things that are internal, not outside forces, but internal values. Then you have a foundation. And once again, I say that word, a foundation to build on. Okay, if I'm always honest about things, then that's a foundation. That you can set that as your foundation and move forward. Is this answering your question, bud?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's other example of values, like you said, the integrity. There's um, planning. There's all kinds of different things. So,
Right.
I think for me anyway, I'm thinking right now, I got to look up that word just to see what some of those values mean to me
Uh-huh.
and what are some of the values that I may have forgotten, because of our cognitive issues. Maybe we forgot that we're a spiritual person. Maybe
Right.
we forgot that we're an extroverted person, whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, and so in the base program or whatever, and I've always said I'll share anything you want, Ralph.
Yeah,
I think the world of you, and we can do anything you want. But in the book itself, it takes you through some steps on what are your values and stuff, because you kind of got to go through some steps and ask yourself some questions about that, and start to get it figured out.
yeah, yeah, you definitely do. And I'm going through a program right now where I had to define some of those this week. It's
Oh,
like, what are your values and how do you achieve them?
and
You
so
know,
how did that go? How did that make you feel? What did that do for you?
um, I'm the first word that comes to mind is confidence. I
I love
regained
it.
confidence. You
I
know,
love that.
um, I regained a purpose, the sense of purpose also, because those values mean something to what I do at my work, storage facility, running that, what I do with Stroke Warrior Radio, and what I do with survivor interactions.
So
You know,
confidence and purpose. I mean, there are two huge, huge things after having a stroke that when you can get those, life is gonna go good. Look, I want to say one other comment because as we're talking about this, everybody, not just stroke survivors, goes through stuff,
yeah,
and when they go through stuff, their confidence and their purpose are always of question, right? And so going through what you went through and knowing that, and then having that as a foundational piece, you can build on that. And if you have a bad day, you go back and you look at those two things and you journal about them. You talk
yes,
about them on your phone, whatever it is you do, you meditate. That is where your growth is going to really start coming full circle, Bob.
yeah, definitely. How do how do how do we as survivors, and not only stroke but TBI, MS, and all of those, how do you help survivors explore purpose without getting overwhelmed?
Mm. Well, that's a good question. You have to take it individually. You have to take it one by one. I mean, I know people who have had a stroke and they're all over it. I, recently met with some people, um, and just yesterday, frankly, and it's going to take a long time. I'm coaching this person, and at the first meeting that we had, I gave him 4 items to work on, and I go back tomorrow or yesterday, and it's too overwhelming for him. So I cut that down. Seriously, here's the goal I gave him for this next 2 weeks. Start walking. You got to
Yeah.
start getting out. You got to exercise your body, because your mind is not going to fire up until you're getting a little bit of activity of some kind, even if you're in a wheelchair, some kind of activity. And so that's where I went with him. So everybody is different, Ralph, on that. I can't give you a blanket answer on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and um, I think a couple words come to mind when I talk about it is expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to lower our expectations because, frankly, you can't expect to be back at work the next day. You
Isn't
can't
that so
expect,
true?
you know, you can't expect that you're going to be running another marathon in 6 months.
You, you and I both had those expectations right after our stroke.
Yes,
Everybody does. They think, oh, hell, I had this stroke a couple of weeks. It's going to take me off guard and then I'm going to be right back in the saddle. Dude, it does not work that way. I mean, it was years for me. I, one of these days I'll tell more of my story, but yeah.
well, and I think part of it too is there's there's separate um, we have to separate our life goals and our recovery goals.
Great. I love that.
Yeah, because the life goals is I drawing a blank right now for that, but your recovery goals is maybe today I'm going to walk 10 steps.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'll walk 15. That kind of thing. It's got to. Don't you think that the purpose and goals have to be broken down? Um, and realizing our expectations are too much, back up and
Yes,
say,
because
oh,
if you set them too high, you're just going to be down on yourself, and then it's going to take you twice as long to get there.
yeah,
And you have to be willing to look at the truth and the reality of where you're at, and that's not an easy thing to do either. But
yeah,
that's where I think that and this isn't a plug for me, but it's just a coach, somebody that can help you um, come to grips with some of that stuff is so important, and then help you get moving the right direction.
yes, I agree totally.
Mhm.
Um, you have, I think this is where I read it from your base program. How can survivors use SMART goals with
Mhm.
compassion?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so smart goals. As I had my company before, we never. There's a million ways to set goals. There really
Right,
are. I put this in the program because it's about, I'm just going to look at it specific. Can you be not too broad about things and be more specific on your goals? How are you going to measure it? Because there's a lot of ways you can measure your growth. Is it attainable or achievable? Just like what we were just talking about. You've got to be real with yourself. Is it relevant? Well, do you really care about it? I would think that if it wasn't, you wouldn't even be going through that. And then is it time based? So you do have to put a time limit on things. However, it doesn't mean that the game's over if you don't make it. I'll bet everybody that's watching this has had goals that they haven't reached, right? But this is one of the things that I tell you, and we were talking about it earlier about putting it on your phone and listening to it. Because, Ralph, I'm telling you, those things come come full circle.
Yeah.
If you're willing to do the work on it. So
Yeah, you mentioned the journaling too. And I've told many people that I have two of them. One's an anger journal, and one's a gratitude journal.
yeah.
I look back on that anger journal and it's like, wow, look where
Uh-huh.
I'm at.
Man, see, that's awesome because there's your motivation, right? And it's like, that's so critical. And new stroke survivors have got to, and I know we've talked about this before, but you guys have to find a way to measure things. If you're not measuring, if you're taking that extra step, like Ralph was talking about, or talking a little bit better, or your eyesight is starting to come back and measuring it somehow. I mean, there's a million things. You have to measure that because that's where you're going to get your motivation to continue driving yourself forward. And and the next thing life's going to be great.
Yeah, it's breaking up those goals into small steps and accepting the steps for me was where is achieving victories every day. The
Love it.
small steps are the victories that you achieve that become better.
I love that every
Yeah.
day. See, just like you said. And if we think as stroke survivors that we're the only ones that are going through that, everybody goes through it. But we do have an added, I was thinking about this too the other day, and you can cut this out or whatever, but you know, we look at all the different things that are out in the world and heart attack and some of these things. We are making progress. You are helping us. You are helping make that progress, Ralph, because stroke is such a huge thing in the world and nobody knows about it until it hits. And so we are making very big strides in the last couple of years.
For a takeaway, what do the base program, belief, attitude,
Strength and energy.
strength, and energy wrap up belief for us? What people should remember from these four chapters.
Well, belief is just about growing your own um, attitude about yourself. You've got to get your own belief back in yourself in order to continue down this road, right? Belief is a critical element. You just have to know that you have the ability to accomplish things again in your own situation. You've got to get that belief back in yourself. It's critical. It's a critical step in the B.A.S.E program, and it's a critical step just for you in general. You
Yeah,
got to get your own belief back in yourself, and that's what it's about.
very cool. Anything else you want to add today?
No, buddy, I just appreciate you. I see the hard work that you put in, Ralph, and I really do appreciate you, and I hope this is going well. So
It is going very well. Keith,
good.
as always, thank you. For our listeners, your stroke or TBI does not define your worth. Your beliefs shape your future. Catch the wave. That's warriors achieving victories every day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ralph.